Harp, episode number 178, Bringing Yourself to Your Art and Letting Your Art Take You to the World. I'm Kathleen Wiley. I am a Jungian Psychoanalyst in North Carolina, and I am here with Deborah Henson-Conant, who is a composer, a creative, a mentor. We both play the harp, and we gather together almost weekly to explore a question. We don't show up with answers, but we show up with a question that we explore through the intersection of psychology and music and life. And if you're joining us live, we invite you to join in our conversation. You are hopefully on a platform that would allow you to type in comments that we would then see and could bring you into the conversation in that way. So, bringing yourself to your art and letting your art take you to the world. And, we explored several iterations of, is it bringing yourself to your harp? Is it bringing yourself to your instrument? Is it bringing yourself to your craft? And we landed on bringing yourself to your art. So, how do you want to speak about your art and experiences? Because I know I have experiences with my art and my crafts, my writing craft, my analytic craft, as well as my music craft with the harp, where sometimes I bring myself and sometimes I'm not all there.
Right. Well, this came up in office hours. So at Hip Harp Academy, there are chats on Mondays, and then there's catch-up coaching, and then there's a session called office hours where we just kind of go and I answer whatever questions that people have, and about creativity and self-expression. And in the middle of it, I found myself writing as I was listening to what somebody was saying, oh, bring yourself to your harp and then let your harp bring you to the world. And this was all about someone who had said that she, when she came to the academy, she wanted to get the toolkit of things that was in the academy, and she did. And she got the toolkit, but she had been playing guitar before, and she had been playing piano before. She was very comfortable with it, and she saw herself as being very physical. But when she came to the harp, she became a kind of different person. And I experienced the same thing as well. And so she went through the toolkit and she got all these skills. But then there was one day where she came to a class and she said something like, maybe I'm struggling a little bit with improvising, even though I can do it on the piano. And I said, well, gee, what do you do when you do it on the piano? And she described what she did. And I said, well, let's have you do that on the harp. Here's how. You do it like this. And she did it right there in the moment. And it was just one of these moments where everybody was like, gasping, because it was the difference between her trying to do the things that would make her a harpist and bringing herself to the instrument and then letting the instrument take her to the world. I mean, you could see that the trajectory from that point would be that she would then be able to take that, the harp is a new instrument, but she would be able to be herself. Right. And the instrument, like for me, and I think for many people, one of the interesting things about the instrument is that it opens up possibilities that you wouldn't have with another instrument. Some of them are just because it's a unique instrument. Some of them are because people have associations with it, like, oh, well, I can have you play at my wedding. So it's easier to do it's kind of easier to get wedding gigs with a harp than with a guitar. But some of them have to do with the harp itself. For example, it has the range of a piano, but it is portable. You could actually walk around with it. So there was a moment in my life where I almost wanted the harp to control me, because I felt so out of control. I wanted to get just the structure and the foundation. Then I felt locked inside that, and I thought, where can I get freedom? And I thought, oh, I can get it in jazz. So then I went to jazz. I learned jazz, and I became a jazz harpist. And then I got locked into that. And there was a moment when I started understanding that I could actually bring myself and who I was, which was someone who loves stories with music, who writes musical theater. I could bring that to the harp and then let the harp take me off take me into the world.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd never put it in those words before. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't really understand what it all, I mean, I'm curious, what you resonated with it. Why?
Right. Yeah, I have to say, as you were talking, I suddenly, it looked like there was like a little sparkly golden yellow ribbon that was coming in through your harp low. And I thought, what is it? Because I know you have a cat. I thought, is that the cat? And then I realized the light was casting shadows as you moved. And
Oh,
so I'm seeing it, and it was a very interesting effect. And I don't know what that has to do with our topic,
well,
except,
I'm hearing that it does have something to do with it, because whatever your art is, it also has its own kind. It brings itself as
yeah,
well. So
yeah.
the harp brings what it looks like. And then this particular harp, because it was built by a craftsman, as almost all of them are, but it was built with his idea of what the harp should look like. It, it's a collaboration in how it looks as well. And that's something that, now that you're saying that, I'm realizing I could be playing with that. I could be exploring the harp in more ways than I do now. So,
Yeah, and I do think you're absolutely right. The shadows and the light, that our art brings something of its own life that isn't in our control, and that is an interactive engagement, which is, when I heard you first suggested this topic question, you know, for me, I have had my own struggles with bringing my full self to the heart, being an adult learner. And the difference I know and have experienced it makes with my comfort level sharing when I show up with all of me on board versus showing up with this idea of who I should be as a harpist or at the harp leading. So
mm,
it's very different. And so when we do show up fully wherever we are, we do feel confident and grounded to move into the world. I mean, again, it's that interplay between the medium that speaks to us that we then are moved to share with the world, and that speaks to the world. It's a bridge of sorts, but it's more than a bridge because it's an expression, it's an extension of something inside of us, and an extension of a universal energy, in this case music, that is so beyond us. So the music does contain us at the same time that we are bringing our full self to relate to the other of the harp or the music.
it's interesting because you talk about containers so often.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to hear a little bit more about it, how it pertains exactly to your work. But as you were talking, um, I realized that when we come to an instrument or an art form or whatever, often we come there with the conventions, depending on how we come. Like if we've been taught in any way or we've seen other people, we kind of come through the conventions of what we think it is and how it works,
Mm-hmm.
versus the opportunities, the unbridled opportunities and possibilities of that instrument. And so I don't know what that means, but just as you were speaking, I was thinking, wow, I probably have not even explored half of what the opportunity, an infinitesimal point. But this is also why I love working creatively with people who either have come to the harp late in life or have gotten frustrated being stuck within it,
Mm-hmm.
or who have come back after a long hiatus, because they will all have had this rich life in some way away from the harp. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's really interesting for me to help them navigate that reconnection. And can they reconnect without whatever, like for example, someone who's had a lot of trauma from early lessons, because that can happen, the trauma of perfectionism. How do you re-navigate and be able to take those amazing skills that you have, but then drop the the thing that stopped you, and allow you to actually bring, I just keep coming back to this, bring yourself to the instrument, not to have the instrument squash you, but to have the instrument become a platform for who you are. Now, I'm interested in this because because this is what I do, what part of what I do, but you have an embodiment circle in which, as I have it, the human body is the instrument that people are bringing. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, the first we are all contained by our body and our body mind. And I say body mind because for me, the body and the mind are not separate entities. And Jung says that if we really knew they're different densities of the same energy. So the mind and the body coexist and occur simultaneously. And the psychic processes and the image making function of psyche through which our images and thoughts emerge occur simultaneous with having body sensations and emotion. So the body mind functions as a unit. When we begin to see that unit as separate, then we immediately begin to cut ourselves in half and split ourselves apart. And so this whole idea of bringing my whole self to my art, it involves what it feels like. Let's just say with the harp, what it feels like at the harp. When I'm sitting with an analysis, it involves how does it feel? What's happening in my body? And do I have a sensory awareness of what's going on inside of me? Because if I don't show up with a sensory awareness, which does include the mind, cognitive functioning, because the sensory awareness, it is the felt sense of the body, but the felt sense of the body is not just bodily physiological sensation, but it's also nuanced feelings and emotions that evoke values and evoke images in us. So if I show up with all of me, consciousness of all of me, that's a very different experience than, again, if I'm totally disconnected from what I'm feeling or experiencing internally, and I'm leading with this head idea of, okay, I'm supposed to look like this at the harp, I'm supposed to raise my arms like this, I'm supposed to do this, whatever. So everything comes back really to having a self, which means we are grounded and contained in our own body minds. And, I always chuckle. This may not be funny, but I think, okay, so solitary confinement is the worst punishment because you're left alone with yourself. You're left alone with your own body mind, with the own energy and being of who you are. That's what you're left with. And yet it is our comfort level in being left with ourselves that allows us to bring ourselves fully to our craft.
Whew, there's a lot there. It's so interesting because as you were talking about solitary confinement, I thought a lot about it in my life. Why? I don't know. But at first I was like, wow, if I was ever in solitary confinement, I would just meditate all day. And then yeah, right. And then I started noticing yeah, Deborah, your windows are closed for 5 minutes and you start getting depressed. I mean, you put your curtains and you start getting depressed in 5 minutes. So seriously, you think,
right.
I mean, whatever. So I don't even know. Yeah. All right. Back from that. So many things came out in what you were saying. You were talking about different densities. You were talking about images. You were talking about vision. As you were talking, I started thinking wait a second. Is our mind a projector and our bodies and our actions are the screen that gets projected on? I also have been really thinking a lot about vision lately because certain of my visions, okay, are we still in the same ballpark? And it doesn't matter. I noticed that without a vision, I will flounder and I will try to do things right the way other people are doing them. And I won't, and I will lose myself. But with a vision, I will navigate towards that vision and it will happen somehow or another. So can you just talk about these words came out of your mouth. So I just want to know how they relate. Different densities, body and mind are different densities. There are images And I think these archetypes are part of that imagery. And I know that an archetype, or my sense of an archetype, is it's not just an image, but it's a felt image.
Mm-hmm.
It is a persona from which we live. So, I mean, there's so much in my mind. So it's a system. It's right. And a system will create what the system creates, no matter what. But vision can somehow be in there. It can either help or
Yeah, so an archetype is a universal template, a universal energy that can show up with many, many guises. A persona is a very specific guise. So a persona is a much more limited psychic structure than the archetype.
Okay.
And the archetypal image is just that. It's an image of the energy, but it's not the energy itself. So Jung is very clear about making those distinctions.
Okay, so let's say you're Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman. You've got this thing going on where you've got it in your head, you can't do this. It's not working.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a persona that you are living into?
And I think that's a complex.
Oh, okay.
It's an unconscious feedback loop of devaluation and lack of self-worth. Now, the complex will have a corresponding or compensating persona or face that then shows to the world.
Okay, I love. You said a bunch of words. I really love them. You were like this because I've also been studying about systems lately, and they talk about feedback, and they talk about like a thermostat. There's one thing coming in, like self-confidence, and this is super relevant for musicians. There's one thing coming in that's like self-confidence, and then there's this other thing that's kind of always there. So maybe the self-confidence is like warmth, but always on the outside of the building is the cold of this this kind of felt sense of I'm not good enough. Of course, that's what we talked about last week. But anyway, we're always going to get back to here one way or another, right? So can you talk about that compensating feedback, and can we also see if we can bring it back to this subject, which is how we bring ourselves to the instrument? In other words, is there some way to bring ourselves to the instrument, leaving the feedback that shuts us down from our self-confidence and instead opens us up to who we actually are?
No.
Why not?
From a Jungian point of view, if we're going to bring our whole self, we bring our whole self, which means I bring my confidence and my successes and my fulfillments alongside of my doubt and my insecurity and the times that I've, stumbled all over myself. But the difference is, if I try to keep one out and only hold the other, then this one gains power to get in. It actually gains more power. If I bring that in and I hold them together, then it's like instead of the seesaw where I'm pinging, I come to this middle place where there's a stability, where there's this sense of, okay, this will be fun however it goes. Yeah, maybe I'll hit a few wrong notes, but it's just alternative harmony, that and I'm hearing some reverb of my voice coming back.
Oh, really? That's so irritating.
Yeah. So we want to move through instead of keeping it at arm's length.
So how would somebody do that if they're bringing themselves, if this is just a premise, or I guess, what do mathematicians do? They like come up with a premise. I forget what it's called. And they're like, I think, bring yourself to your harp and the harp will bring you to the world. And then they go about looking at it, which is, I feel, kind of like what we're doing here. So let's say that premise is true. You bring yourself to the instrument, and the instrument somehow becomes, or could somehow become, a filtration system to filter out all the, I'm kind of seeing how that could happen. It could filter out all the crap and actually allow you to express yourself. And here's what I'm seeing in this moment. Because that it actually, because I know that people, we have this thing called the ick pot in the academy, where you actually have this pot, this picture of a pot, and as these thoughts, these limiting thoughts come up, you write them down, and the instrument itself does filter, it does bring those out. And at the same time, depending on what you're doing, like when I guide people in playing, there's often a moment when they get out of this, like, I got to get this, and they get to, like, they're able to do something simple where they actually break through to the joy. And so the playing of the instrument actually acts as a filtration system to see those two things.
Yeah, so you said a lot of things there. I want to bring back in what you said about vision, because I think if the vision is to bring myself to the heart and let the heart take me to the world, or bring myself to the writing and let the writing take, if to whatever the craft is, if my vision is bringing the self and expressing, that's a different vision than playing a right note or having it sound like somebody else would sound when they play it. And so I think a lot of the filtration happens with the vision, because if the vision is to be centered in the self, if the vision is, okay, I know I'm not the greatest harpist in the world, but my playing is beautiful, then that puts me in that middle territory. I'm not out here trying to pretend that I'm better than I am, or have more technique or skill or whatever than I have. And I'm claiming the beauty, the reason I play the harp in the first place. So I think our vision or our focus is important here. And in the process of refining our vision, those old things in the ick pot get burned away. That is the first embodiment process, that after we do embodiment practices, we talk about embodiment processes that use symbols from alchemy. And the first one is, the formal name is calcination, but it basically means the old stuff, the rotten stuff gets burned up. Erroneous ideas, false ideas, the repetitive history that's just not the truth of who we are. It gets burned away. And so vision both emerges from that process of those old ideas you put in the ick pot burning away, but a vision that there's something beyond what this icky voice is saying also facilitates the burning. So it is a cyclical process.
Wow. I see the system of that. And I'm going to pull up, Victoria has shared something. The body mind thing is so interesting. Yeah. What are your suggestions on making our body and mind more connected? How can we deal with the discomfort when our body or mind are not convinced that we can do something? Well, I'll take a pass at that and then let you take a pass at it. First of all, I observe. Like when I'm asking people to do something, I asked them to do something, can't remember what it was yesterday. I think it was something very simple, like maybe just that, and maybe go down to this chord. So we were going, and I know that it was if I hadn't said, stay here, take time, play up there, stay here, take time. And we did it over and over and over again. And I know that if I hadn't said that, if I hadn't been there to create that container of over and over, nobody would have spent the time. They would not have grounded, and they would have actually once again created the feeling, I can't do this. And so one of my suggestions in making body and mind more connected, one of my suggestions is to actually take that time, which can be super hard, but some of the ways to do it are to put on a timer. It's basically meditation. The other thing that I discovered myself teaching last April, same chords or something like this, up to the sky, down to the earth. So then I think it was again like out to the world, and then fly, to
Mm.
start engaging and connecting my body with a sound and with the instrument. But it requires allowing something that I think people are so resistant to, and I see myself being resistant to. And the resistance is, as soon as you get something, we want to go on to get that something. Okay, now I want to go on. And that's the thing that undermines this.
Right.
Actually doing the thing over and over. And sometimes I'll say to myself, I'm going to do this until I make myself cry.
Mm.
I'm going to do it until I discover the beauty in it. Now, because singing is such an important part to me, I might, I up, whatever. I see the day, I open down, I reach out to the world, I reach deep inside. I might say something because language is such it's just it's just something. I love language and I love singing. So I might then incorporate myself, and that is me bringing myself to the instrument. Now, how I would end up then, well, and then I would say, in this mindset, I would say that's all you have to do. Don't worry at that moment about how the instrument is going to take me out to the world. Just make that connection, that alliance. It's like, again, I keep going back to that movie. I forget what that movie was. Um, Avatar. And
Mm.
this moment when the guy gets on his horse, he takes his braid and he connects it with the horse, his tail, and now they are one thing.
Mhm.
They are a chimera. They are one thing. And
Mhm.
now this is the way I'm. The horse starts informing the rider, and the rider starts informing the horse. And so this is how I would go about this with the instrument. What do you think?
No, I think what you're saying, you're talking about bringing in movement, and
Mhm.
you also demonstrate it with the singing, following the impulse from within your own body mind to add the language. From in the embodiment circle, we work with 6 embodiment practices. The first one is body awareness. And so the first suggestion I have for making the body and mind more connected consciously, because it is connected, we just aren't conscious of it, is doing a body scan. And, body scan is the first step in mindfulness meditation. And simply put, you get yourself in a comfortable position and you begin to breathe, and you just start at your feet and you slowly work your way up at your body, naming as you come up, noticing and naming whatever the sensation and emotional quality of that sensation is, if there is one. And you practice that. And in the embodiment circle, we start out, ideally, you practice it twice a day. You start at 5 or 10 minutes. And if you can build up to 30 minutes each time, because the more that we do that, we begin to hear things. Dion
Mhm.
Fortune, who was a psychologist, who was a contemporary of Jung, she was also an occultist. And I always have to tell my Southern Baptist girl, occult means hidden and unconscious. Okay, so she studied the esoteric spiritual traditions, which Jung also did, and which I do. But she said, if we have the ability to know what is going on deep inside of our body, including
Mhm.
the functioning of our organs, but we lose conscious connection to it. And so the body scan is a way to redevelop that. If you need it from a scientific perspective, Annie Murphy Paul, in her book, The Extended Mind, Thinking Beyond the Brain, she has three sections. And what she does is she has compiled research from the last 30 years that show that thinking is not a function of brain chemistry alone, that
Mhm.
thinking is beyond the brain. And the first section is thinking with the body. And she
Mm.
talks about thinking with sensation, thinking with gesture, and thinking with movement. You just demonstrated that at the heart. And she says in there that that people who are more aware of what's happening in their body make better use of their non-conscious knowledge. Now we're talking what Jungian analysis is about. That And she again quotes all kinds of research about this, including Wall Street traders who um, can tell researchers what their heart rate is,
Huh.
who will make a trade based on a sensation in their body, end up making more money than the people who go back and do the research and analysis first. This is part
I
of the research.
see.
So body scan. And then the second thing, how do you deal with the discomfort when our body or mind are not convinced we can do something? The first step is to breathe, to keep breathing through it. And again, the rhythmic breathing that we work with in the embodiment circle is pairing the breath to your heart rate. So I always suggest people start with one inhale to 4 heartbeats and one exhale to 4 heartbeats. So you sync your breathing to your own heart. That has so much power. It symbolically also and energetically. And beginning to breathe. And then from there, you can begin to relax, do some relaxation practices. Then you can work with mind awareness, which is also an embodiment practice, where you begin to hear those thoughts, the things that DHC you were talking about putting in the ick pot. And then you begin to dialogue with that. I mean, is this statement the truth? So often our body's having a life or death response to something, and we anticipate something catastrophic is going to happen, that when we slow down, if I mess up and miss a few notes, that's not catastrophic. Now, if I freak out when I miss notes, that might be catastrophic.
Right.
So it helps relativize our thoughts, and it helps relativize our central nervous system response. And we begin to see, okay, is this response to really what's happening in the present, or is this coming from something from the past I am unconsciously projecting? It's an ongoing process. Embodiment is a lifelong process. Jung says individuation, living into our fullness, it's a lifelong process. And so
Hmm.
if we can
Hmm.
relax into that, then every experience, including our conversation today, becomes an opportunity to drop deeper and deeper into our whole nature and let that move us into the world. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm just checking the time.
Yeah.
Just because God, well, as I heard you talk, I mean, I realized, that when we have allergic reactions, for example, it's the reaction of the body that actually becomes the problem. And when we are just like when you said, when people play a wrong note and they respond to it, they react to it, that's when it becomes, that's when it that's when it derails them and their listener.
Right.
And then I loved what you said. Well, I wrote down playing into our fullness.
Yeah.
That this process, and because it's something I've been trying to say, but I didn't really have the words, that each piece exists in a simple fundamental form. I was showing this I was giving a class in Italiana yesterday, and I showed how something that we learned in 1 hour could be the whole piece. You could experience it and play it and share it, very simple, as the whole piece. And you can spend a lifetime playing into the fullness of that, and it will keep expanding. Right. So I'm going to bring up the next thing that Victoria says. Now I wonder if I need to work. It's so funny. I'm so aware of these words. I need to work this. I need to get better. Now I wonder if I need to work on convincing my body and my mind in order to fully embody something. I think it's the language. I think convincing. Well, one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking, Kathleen, I was thinking, oh, so when I try to control the situation, when I try to control the beast, or I try to control this beast, when I'm like, you're not doing it good enough, or I can't do that, I find that definitely disconnects me from bringing myself to the instrument. And it can be really hard for me to allow myself to actually play what I can play.
Right.
I always want to play more. I want to do something else. And I just had this experience at Somerset. I was talking to Maeve Gilchrist, who's like the fastest player in the whole world. I was talking before her concert, and she was like, I'm going to play all new music. And I was like, I'm going to be like Maeve. I'm going to do that. And so I got on stage and I was trying to prove to myself that I could do what somebody else was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I know from other people saying like, what is she there? Like, where is she? And in the middle of the second song, I was in the middle of it. I was like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you doing this? And it was because I thought I'm not good enough the way I am. Why am I keep playing the same music. It's not okay. I should be. And in that moment, I was like, stop it, stop it. Live what you tell others to live. And so I actually told the audience what was happening. I shifted from that to another song where I was singing and I was belting and I was able to be. I truly was bringing myself to the harp, and the energy shifted in the room. Now, why am I saying this right? Oh, because I shifted from what something I was trying to be to who I actually am. Afterwards, I then said to myself, okay, these other pieces I was trying to play, why? How can I start having a relationship with those pieces that is similar to the relationship I had with the pieces I'm comfortable with? So
Mm-hmm.
first I let myself be comfortable and I engaged, and then I thought, okay, what is there? And I realized I just want to spend more time with them. I was trying to prove myself through them. Um, so, but I'm going to come back. Maybe the strategy is to
Yeah.
train on both the body, like the body movements you demonstrated, and the mind through journaling and other activities that involve thinking. And it's very interesting because there's someone in the academy who comes from she's an orthopedic surgeon, retired, and she's also a dancer and an ice dancer, and she is committed to creating something called harp moves, which is how to move with the harp. So we've been writing some simple music that allow people to really move with the instrument. So I mean, I love what you're saying, Victoria, about basically you're putting it in more sort of strategic terms.
Mm-hmm.
Strategy, train both the body and the mind, and this really comes to bring yourself to the instrument, body, mind, spirit, soul. I've become I never loved the harp and I didn't like harp music. So this has been a lifelong expanding love affair with me. Recently, I've been feeling like the harp is like a service animal, that it's offering me a way to be fully expressed
Yeah.
and to be in the world. And Victoria, I have it that you can do this through the harp.
Yeah.
And this is part of what I'm teaching in the academy, is how to be you. What are the fundamental things we can do that will bring the unique person out of their instrument?
Yeah, and the uniqueness is tied into one's own inner felt sense, you know. And I use the term felt sense because, emotion and feeling, those terms get so loaded, and, so felt sense is, I remember an experience I had of playing Faraway Waltz, because I'm married to someone who's repertoire, he's an old time fiddler, but he also has this extensive Irish repertoire. Most of the tunes I play are Irish. And so I'm playing this Faraway Waltz, and of course, I have a Scottish heritage way back, um, and it was just one of those days. I love these songs that are just, they have a melancholic quality. It just speaks to me. And I was by myself, and I was playing it, and I was playing it not thinking about trying to get it right, but I was playing it from the feeling, the felt sense in my gut as I was hearing it in my mind. And for whatever reason, where I was at emotionally, psychologically, physically, spiritually that day, that was the song I wanted to play. And I just heard it, and it just had this beauty to it. And actually that day I just stopped. I've had to work on, when I've sometimes had that experience, the beauty of it just stops me in my tracks. But when I'm playing from that place and John is in the room, he will always comment on it. He will always. And I was doing an improv. I think I talked about this in another episode a few weeks ago. I was doing an improv um, one, one day that I got into a Frisian mode, but it was so lovely. And I just kept going with it because I felt it. And afterwards, he commented on it. And, um, and I said, yeah, the word that came to my mind about it was haunting. And he said, yeah, it was haunting. And then he asked me what I was playing in. And, he determined with his music theory, it was Phrygian. And he said, I had started on E, and he said, that's the darkest of the dark. And I said, well, that makes sense, because what I was feeling was that darkness that gives birth to the new light. And so that haunting quality wasn't a haunting that was disturbing. It was a haunting that was soothing in a way. It gives me chilly bumps telling this right now. It's what I mean. But that's embodiment in the bigger sense of the word. That's embodiment. There's a congruence between what's happening in here and what I'm expressing and doing out here.
And let me just ask one thing. I know we're over time, but and I know you can answer this maybe. And I know some people will say, I don't feel that. I can't feel that. I'm not there. And and I get it. And so let's just give all of us something to think about. If we're like, what's wrong with me? I don't feel that thing.
Then go to the body scan. If you are not having a felt sense connection to the music you're playing, or to the gardening you're doing, or the meal you're cooking, or the person you're having a conversation with, then stop and do a body scan, because we all have sensation and emotion. But what's happened is we have been trained to ignore it. And part of the training to ignore it was we got trained to dismiss it,
Right.
and we got trained to dismiss it because we were shamed about it. So it's there, but you have to wake up the sensory connection. You have to wake up the consciousness. It's like going to the gym. Your muscles are there. You can lift 20 pounds, but you may go to the gym and only be able to start with 2 pounds.
I see. All right. So I'm going to say, if you're doing this, if you're bringing yourself to an instrument, go to one of the first pieces you ever played, to the one part of it that you love. All you have to do is find one part, one measure, one note, whatever it is that you love, and play that over and over, not to get it right, but to explore it, to discover through it. Give it time to speak to you.
Yes.
Give it time so that it can come to you.
Yes.
And I'm gonna let Victoria have the last one. I feel I am not there. I tell myself I am not there yet, and keep looking, or trying to get there. Keep looking. And I would say you can do that with an instrument, including the instrument of your body. You can do it as a body scan. You can do it with anything that you love. A small moment. Don't take the whole thing. Take something you can do that's beautiful. And in the Academy, we create these each week. We call them snippets, little tiny things you can do, because then they expand.
Yes. Yes.
Kathleen, wow, I can't wait to play into my fullness and explore that. And I look forward to seeing you and Victoria and everybody else. We'll be here next week, right?
Yes, we'll be here next week.
All right. Until then, go forth and harp on playing into the fullness of your life. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Visit jungatharp.com for show notes, contact links, and to follow the ongoing conversation. That's Jung, as in Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst, and harp, as in the many-stringed instrument.